Good morning. I'm your host today, Rob Peck, and when it comes to music, my maxim is mistakes will be made, but hopefully no dire consequences, and some fine moments will also be displayed. I want to take just a moment to say that it's been an even more sort of fluctuating current of blessings and burdens in the weather, in the world, and maybe in many of our own personal lives. And it's, for me, a great comfort that even if I've been away for a couple weeks, this is a solid place I can come back to, and that this is, on many levels, a sanctuary and also a kind of homecoming. And I hope many of you will feel similarly that this is where you belong in this moment, and that something that we can all trust got us here at this time on this day. In case you didn't know, you're an All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, and no matter what you believe, who you love, or your background and circumstances, I mean it. We all mean it. You are welcome, warmly welcome. We have the joy of coming together and to make sure that not only do we feel welcome here, but our fellow congregants who may be catching this from afar, but who are still with us in spirit, and maybe even on Zoom. Clay, do we have a couple names you can mention?
Morning. Joining us this morning via Zoom is Gary and Christy, Joan Pillsbury, Maria, Robin Weingarten, and Trudy Rao.
Really glad you guys are there. I can feel your spirits. Quick practical note: at the back of your order of worship are a couple of things to pay in mind in terms of upcoming events. Although honestly, yes, there are a few things right at the bottom where it says notices. I don't see anybody who it's their first visit here, but I could be wrong. Is there anyone in this huge throng of attendees who's here for the first time, hiding amidst all the hundreds of other people in the pews? Oh, here he is, Andrew Baker. I know it's here for your first time, so I'm so glad you joined us. So here's the moment that is a chance to detach from all of the stuff that keeps us so preoccupied and sometimes so sleepless at night with all the harrowing things that are happening outside of these hallowed halls, and a chance to just really sit back, find yourself in a comfortable position. I'm going to offer 5 guided centering directions. Do it in your own way, at your own pace, but it's basically going to be 5 deep breaths, each one inviting us to come more fully into this space. So let's start with just one silent, deep breath. A little moment to be kind to our hearts and give them our full, undivided attention. So breathing in deeply, I ease my mind, and breathing out slowly, I smile serenely. Breathing in calm and collected, breathing out centered and connected. Breathing in deeply, I open and unwind. Breathing out slowly, I relax and release. Breathing in grounded and grateful. Breathing out gliding and graceful. Breathing in deeply, I am here, I am present. Breathing out slowly, I am clear. I am at peace. And now I welcome you, Jim, to play this morning's prelude. Bless you, brother. And I mentioned at the beginning how glad I was to be here. I'm especially glad to be here in a kind of teamwork with our special guest speaker and doing double duty as pianist, Jim Levinson. And I'm triply delighted that my friend and my housemate, Clay Perry, is helping out on all the tech and the sound. So big thanks and shout out to both of you. Matt, would you be willing to come up and light the chalice, please? So the words of this poem came to me months ago, and I'm glad that it still feels as pertinent now as it did then. You'll find it in your order of service, and please read along, if you don't mind, as I read aloud. Thank you, Matt. Fire of the spirit and the soul, sacred flame of kindful community, kindle the connection that makes us whole. In your hallowed glow of unity and clarity, light of compassion and common purpose, twin beacons of humility and compassion, bind our different strands of faith in one long braid, warm our hearts in a fellowship that sometimes flickers but does not fade. And now if you'll turn, is it in the green hymn book or the regular gray hymn book? Hymn number 101. Gray one? Okay, so in our... Yeah, I've been thinking that. You got it, Clay? Thank you, Andrew. Jim, you want to lead us into hymn number 101, and stand, please, as you are able. And Thank you, Jim. So this is another form of teamwork. I would love to hear all your voices as we speak and hopefully really take that extra second to really take in our congregational covenant. At its best, it's like our map. It's like our spiritual GPS that's taking us to that place that we find united and I know we're all Unitarians, we're not always singing on the same page, but it does make sense that there are certain places where we really do feel a common thread. So I'll read the first line, and then if people will, in unison, speak the bulleted lines. In this house, we covenant with one another. Together to promote equality, justice, and peace, accepting responsibility for our individual acts, to stand on the side of love, embracing the liberation of the oppressed, and working to end discrimination and unjust privilege, to communicate with kindness and support, and to serve with compassion and commitment, to listen respectfully and value our diversity as a source of our collective strength, to learn and grow together, generously sharing our time, talents, and treasures, to celebrate the joys of discovery from the wonder of youth to the wisdom of age, to openly share our laughter and our tears, showing reverence for the divine in all that is. And Jim, if you play a little music to accompany our offertory, most of you know this drill. If you can, please be generous. It means a lot to us. Thank you. And now if you'll turn to hymn number 26, which depending on which language you grow up speaking, is either Holly, 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 or Holy, Holy, Holy. All right, Jim, if you'll now come and take your second station and share with us your sermon, The Second Mountain.
Thanks, Rob, and greeting, friends. David Brooks, longtime editorial writer for the New York Times, announced last month that he's about to conclude this chapter in his life. Have some of you followed his writing? And have any of you read his book, The Second Mountain? I haven't been the biggest fan of Brooks's politics, but I think he really captured something vitally important here in this book. Not a brand new concept, but compellingly presented. The idea of the book is that most of us strive in the early part of our lives to climb Mountain One. All about self-centered success, reputation, and ego. And then one of three things could happen. The first is we might go on seeking to climb Mountain One for the rest of our lives, seeking esteem and recognition, determined to make our mark on the world. Or, number two, we might get to the top of Mountain One and realize with some disappointment that it's not all that satisfying after all. Is this all there really is? We might ask. Or, number three, we might fall off Mountain One. A bad break, illness, death of a loved one, imprisonment, and fall into what Brooks calls the valley. Let's look at the second of these. Some of us become disillusioned with the ego-based climbing of Mountain One. Some of us think of it as maybe a midlife crisis. It sometimes happens in one's 30s or 40s, when the goals that we've been pursuing in adulthood just don't seem worth it anymore. Sometimes, Brooks argues, this takes place when we face a serious illness, lose a loved one, get divorced, or something equivalent. In his own particularly vulnerable self-examination, Brooks acknowledges being traumatized first by his divorce after a 28-year marriage, and then by seeing his moderate conservative editorial views get skewered by the Tea Party and the Trump takeover. Such trying times, he tells us, sometimes lead to a fundamental reorientation within ourselves, which recognizes that our previous approach to life might have been radically insufficient. At that point, it may become possible to begin climbing what Brooks calls the second mountain. This one involving caring and compassion for others, some of the words we just read a few moments ago. On this second mountain, not always an easy one to climb, life moves from self-centered to other-centered, to interdependence, not independence, and to commitment, perhaps to a spouse or a family, perhaps to a vocation, perhaps to a philosophy or a faith, perhaps to a community, perhaps to a relationship. Let's look at two of these commitment possibilities: commitment to faith and commitment to relationships. I found Brooks' sections on faith an interesting exploration of his own journey. Growing up as a Jew, becoming quite obsessed with it in his years at the University of Chicago, and then, as his life progressed, becoming, in his own words, a wandering Jew, a confused Christian, a border stalker and an amphibian, planting his feet into both moral ecologies. On the Jewish side, he seems to have been most influenced by Reb Nachman of Breslov and Rabbis Abraham Joshua Heschel and Joseph Soloveitchik. On the Christian side, by Jean Vanier, Henry Nouwen, Thomas Merton, and Dorothy Day. Our commitment to relationships, Brooks writes, this is the arena in which we best exercise our values and express our visions. These relationships enrich our lives with intimacy, purpose, healing, and wholeness. Although terrible and divisive forces may try to eat away at our relationship, the spirit behind them can never be destroyed. And the result, he tells us, is joy. The people who radiate such lasting joy are not those who sit in a room alone thinking about the difference between right and wrong, but rather those who have given themselves over to lives of deep, loving commitment, who live primarily for others instead of for themselves. Brooks goes on to argue that adherence to the first mountain is at the heart of modern society's extreme individualism, which has the effect of tearing the social fabric. The first mountain focused on personal success, he writes, on keeping score in the never-ending pursuit of money, power, and success is a temporary happiness, while the second mountain, the surrender of self and the substitution of something bigger, offers the lasting joy. Here's how he talks about the difference between the climbing of the two mountains. He writes, "You don't climb the second mountain the way you climb the first mountain. You conquer your first mountain. You identify the summit and you claw your way toward it. By contrast, you are conquered by the second mountain. You surrender to some summons and you do everything necessary to answer the call and to address the problem of injustice that is in front of you. On the second mountain, on the first mountain, you tend to be ambitious and strategic and independent. On the second mountain, you tend to be relational and intimate." Let's close our eyes for just a moment and reflect on what our journey has been so far with respect to these mountains. If you're beyond your 30s and 40s and still find yourself on the first mountain, still coveting recognition and status, still primarily obsessed with oneself, David Brooks would offer this caution: look out down the road. People who continue climbing that first mountain, that mountain of self and personal gain and accomplishment, often get cut off along the way by others who, as we age, are better positioned than we are to take high places on the ladder. I frankly am not too sad when this happens to a money-making person in the private sector. But when it happens to someone living a life in a profession offering services to others, I find it very sad. And it's happened to more than a few persons that I've known. If we've fallen off the ladder, Brooks has an inspiring story for us by no less than Alexander Solzhenitsyn, which I will share at the end of this sermon. If, having taken the fall, we have the good fortune to be offered some genuine kindness, remarkable things can happen on the way up. If you've made it to the second mountain, Brooks would congratulate us, but warn us against the possibility that even on that second mountain, there is the possibility of slipping. Flashes of self and of ego may well still occur, although if we're lucky, far less often than they used to. And sometimes we aren't immediately aware of the changes as we begin moving to the second mountain. Brooks tells us this wonderful story of a couple who were all about status and social climbing, and then almost by happenstance began providing occasional meals to a needy classmate of their son. A gesture that snowballed simply by responding to the needs around them. And it snowballed into a weekly dinner for 25 kids, a home for several, and an annual seaside holiday for as many as 40. I used to think of this as a circle moving counterclockwise from the bottom. The first half, climbing up the circle, involves doing, becoming, achieving. The second half, if one is lucky enough to make the turn, involves being, giving, and divesting. Another image I've had of that circle takes place at the bottom of the circle, both where the circle begins and ends. The image I have is of my son Noah at the age of 2, meeting Nichidatsu Fuji, founder of the Japanese Buddhist sect Nippon Zanmyohoji, at the age of nearly 100, and the two of them connecting in such extraordinary fashion. Let's focus a bit on those who fall off of Mountain One, perhaps from a bad break, experiencing illness, death of a loved one, or imprisonment, and fall into the valley. Brooks explains that many who fall into the valley are never able to climb out. Others, as we've noticed, may have the good fortune to encounter caring individuals, and sometimes ideas that help them begin moving up from the valley, and just maybe climbing instead the second mountain. The notion of moving up the valley reminds me of hearing years back a presentation at Chautauqua by a respected investigative journalist. The journalist commented at one point that young reporters in their 20s and 30s, early 30s, aren't worth much. That they begin to accomplish something valuable only after they've been through some hard knocks, only after they've been bucked off their high horses and start to get some real perspective about life. I found Brooks's description of the valley extraordinarily heartfelt and moving, and I found it so relevant to the prison ministry that I'd been doing in the prison right here in Greenfield. I actually read to the inmates for their reflection one of several letters that Brooks includes in his book describing the valley. This one, as mentioned, is by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and it's about the years he spent in a Soviet prison. Here's a portion of that letter. Solzhenitsyn writes, "It was granted to me to take from my prison years this essential experience. In the intoxication of youthful successes, I had felt myself to be infallible. I had established an identity, a reputation. I had developed an ego. I was going to be successful. In fact, thinking back, I was sometimes cruel to others, but I was convinced it was in my best interest. But then I fell off the mountain and I found myself in prison. I was sent down into the valley of bewilderment and suffering. Down in that valley, I saw I was not really the person that I thought I was. I was broken open. It was only as I lay there on the rotting prison straw that I sensed there might be another layer to myself that I had been neglecting. I began to see deeper into myself, and surrounded by some caring souls, other inmates, I found in myself an ability to care, to transcend myself and to begin to care for others, to begin to become a whole person. I began seeing familiar things with new eyes. I understood for the first time the meaning of love your neighbor as yourself. I was no longer interested in what other people had told me to pursue, money, power, fame. I began instead to want the things that are truly worth wanting. I became brave enough to let my old self die. I lost myself in order to find myself. Joy rose up unexpectedly within me and swept over me. I began to experience genuine wonder, gratitude, and hope. That is why I turn back to the years of my imprisonment and I say, sometimes to the astonishment of others, "Bless you, prison." I say it without hesitation, "Bless you, prison, for you saved my life." Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And now finally, back to ourselves. Some of us have indeed had the good fortune to be able to move to that second mountain. But, Brooks tells us, it is unlikely to be without problems. And this is particularly the case when we don't have others with whom to share the experience. Others with whom to talk about the enormous transition taking place in our lives. Some people who graduate to that second mountain find themselves climbing that mountain very much alone, seeking to be caring and compassionate, seeking to think about others, but doing this very much alone. Surely richer than the first mountain, but Brooks reminds us, far less satisfying than those who were able to climb that mountain together with others, who were able to be part of a community genuinely committed to social justice and altruism, both locally and beyond. How fortunate, how very fortunate most of you are to be part of just such a community here at All Souls. Amen.
And the small fortune of being able to hug my friend without knocking the cup of water out of my hand is another little minor blessing of a day that's been rich already with blessings. Let's move to the part of our order of service where we sing hymn number 20, strategically placed just a few pages before the hymn number 26. Hymn number 20, Be Thou My Vision, and again, please stand as you are willing and able. So part of that second mountain is a place where we feel safe to share things that are parts of the journey that are challenging and sometimes just flat out hurtful, as well as the little glimpses of a great vista or a personal milestone or people who you care deeply about, the things you're going well for, and that is a true joy. So in a moment, when you're ready, raise your hands if you'd like to share a joy or a concern. Jane will kindly light a candle. And please know if your joy or concern is when you're more comfortable sharing in a more private way, there are some candles along the side, and you can also light a candle there. So I think, let's see. Should be good. Testing. All right. Good to have a good sound engineer. Does someone want to start us off with a joy or a concern? Go ahead, Card.
I have both a joy, which is, this is the most joyful church I've ever been to. And I have a sorrow, which I didn't realize I had until I think it was last week I talked about it. because it was that I'm still mourning my husband. I was married to him for so many years. We met at at a ski weekend up in Vermont, and it was very unusual that we both took the bus up because his car was damaged because he has bald tires on his fancy sports car, and it was damaged. So, but he never took public transportation. Anyway, but we were married for so many years. We were married for 57 years. And I would really like to have someone to just talk with me about how wonderful he was. And he was just so caring, and he was also my spell check. I'm a terrible speller, and I used to be able to say, "How do you spell such and such?" Anyway, but I really miss him a lot.
Hi, I'm Kate. I have two friends, acquaintances, who died this weekend. One is Paki Whalen, who was well known. She made the front page of the Recorder this Saturday, I think it was yesterday. But she was quite an activist. And then the other person is Terry.
Hi, I'm Matt. Please light a candle of joy for my mother. A month ago, she had a stroke, and my father, who is her caregiver, was really struggling. Yesterday, she returned home from rehab, and she has all of her mobility back, miraculously. And she's in a wonderful mood, and my father is doing very well, and my family is elated.
Hi, my name's Russ, and my joy is I got an email a few days ago from an old friend of mine who I hadn't seen or heard from in years. We first met in Turner's Falls back in '77, and we were housemates for a couple of years. We were best friends, but then, you know, how things go, people go in different directions. And it was great to hear from her, and I don't know what it's going to be in the future, but this is a good start, so that's a joy for me.
Hi, I'm Ray. I'm struggling with something I've struggled with for a long time. A friend of mine with Alzheimer's is descending into dementia. There doesn't seem to be any place for her. Regal Care took her for a while, said that she's aggressive. They put her in the hospital to let the ER decide whether she needed a Jerry psych eval. Regal Care decided to take her back, and they decided they didn't want her, and it's been back and forth, and it just seems like there's no one that's there to help her. There's no place for her, and our society seems to throw old people away. I'm at a loss.
Clay, do we have anyone on Zoom? Oh, I'm coming.
Yes, we have Carol Saltman, who would like to light a candle of joyful gratitude for Jim's sermons this morning on what was so compelling, presented, as he said, of David Brooks's message. Thank you. your presence here at All Souls is a huge gift, Jim.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jane. I'm sorry if you get tired of hearing about my son, but it's too bad. Last week was his birthday, and he's in Minneapolis this weekend doing some harm reduction work at a concert. Anybody here who's under 30 might have heard of Grizz? Yes. So anyway, he FaceTimed me from the Alex Preddy Memorial, and it not only was it just intense and beautiful, but it just really, really helped me to, I mean, he's just turned 24, he lives 2,000 miles away from me. I miss him terribly. It's like, is it Rosie O'Donnell who said having a child, it's like your heart living outside your body. But the fact that he would go someplace and have an experience like that and be like, I need to share this with Mom. And as much as I hate Meta, thank you for FaceTime, because it was just a really great thing to be able to share with him. So that's my joy. But I also have a sadness, and I apologize if, as a fairly new person to the community, I'm speaking about something very sensitive and painful, but I heard about a loss at the school this week, and I just thought that a candle should be lit for that child and that child's family. Thank you.
Rob, I have one more from Gary and Christie's. They would like to light a candle for Susan Quinn, who passed away. So they would like to remember her.
Jane, would you light a candle for my time in Costa Rica, which, if I said it was star-crossed, would be a rare example of understatement. It was like every day a new dilemma, but thankfully every night a new delight. Got to the point where I didn't know if I was going to be waking up in Rumi's guest house or going to sleep at Faulty Towers. But it was definitely a seesaw, but in the end, the blessings narrowly eked out the burdens for a victory. I also want to offer a candle, Jane, and then your long service is done lighting. Thank you. Not everybody is comfortable sharing aloud. Not everything can be shared aloud. But just like we say at the beginning, that no matter what you believe, who you love, backgrounds and circumstances, those are all welcome, and so are all the unexpressed candles of joys and sorrows. So we'll end with our closing hymn, number 123, Spirit of Life. Did you hear, Jim? We're gonna do a rousing vocal conclusion twice.
a few healing words for the loved one who is not well. Misha Berach, Misha Berach, Misha Berach. And for the loved ones that we have lost. Yitgadal v'yitgadar shemei rabbah, v'yalamad divarach yirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayedecho beit Yisrael, b'hagalav v'zman kariv, v'yimeru. Amen. And for all of us, a benediction from the Reverend William Sloan Coffin. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May God give you the grace not to sell yourself short. The grace to risk something big for something good. The grace to remember the world is now too dangerous for anything but truth and too small for anything but love. May God take your minds and think through them. May God take your lips and speak through them. May God take your hands and work through them. May God take your hearts and set them on fire. Amen.
After those inspiring words, Levinson, now you need to play the postlude. News is that in a minute we can adjourn, and there's lots of yummy food to share, coffee and tea to drink, and fellowship to have. But first, announcements. I want to announce that tomorrow night at 7, if any of you would like to see or just experience part of what we do to try to make this place thrive at our board meeting, anyone is welcome to join us. Our faithful clerk, Kate, I'm sure could get you the Zoom link. We usually go from 7 to 9. You do not have to stay the whole time unless you are on the board, in which case you got to stick it out right to the end. So there will be chocolate cookies. Yes, there will be in David's rich fantasy life chocolate and cookies. For the rest of us on the Zoom, bring your own chocolate and your own cookies. Anyone else have an announcement that would be valuable to our church community? Great.
We're going to come up here and we're doing a little gig.
All right, this is what we've been waiting for.
Like last week when we had 2 other members of our Canvas Committee do a wonderful sonnet. Rob and I are going to try one as well, since we are on our Canvas Committee. Please.
Okay. Thanks, David. This is the second of six fun Canvas campaign kickoff tunes. So you'll be experiencing 4 more after this.
And in case they don't understand it, it's being sung to.
Oh, well, I'll get to that. This particular tune is being sung to the tune of Swinging on a Star. Most people would know that. Anyway, we hope you find them tolerable, inspirational, for sure, and somewhat entertaining. So the lyrics are modified, of course, through a person named Bob Nash, who is part of the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood, New Jersey. So we'll get started here. Okay.
All right.
Before we get started with the Canvas campaign, there are some things we should explain. Your Canvas caller is a volunteer, and raising funds is not their real career. So if a kindly demeanor you'll maintain, we've got an awful lot to gain. And would you like to help us expand? Give the Canvas a helping hand. Share the future that we've all planned. Or would you rather be a duck? A duck keeps avoiding all his Canvas's calls. He makes excuses and he stalls. I'm much too busy is his lame refrain. He gives their canvasser a royal pain. So if escape is your way to save a buck, you may be acting like a duck. Or would you like to
help us expand, giving the
canvas a helping hand? Maybe donate a couple of grand. Or maybe you could be a deer. A deer knows his canvas is giving their time. To make the job tough would be a crime. The deer invites him like a welcome friend and makes a generous pledge at the end. So if you'd like our building to stay here, support the canvas like a deer. And all the animals in the zoo wish that they could contribute too. But friends, you know it's all up to you. You know our future could be grand if you'll just help us to expand.
Nothing like putting a little Broadway into fundraising. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, David. And all the thought of theater aside, it's a creative and a fun way to remind us that that second mountain is an interdependent mountain, and the only way we're going to climb it is if we do it together. Did you have an announcement also?
Hi, I'm Suzanne. So why stop singing? I want to appreciate the congregation through the Social Justice Committee of allowing us to use the space here this afternoon from 12:30 to 2:30 for singing simple songs of love and resistance. And I started getting this effort together a few weeks ago when I kept running into people who said, we should sing more, who are active. And so it's all come together, and in the process of finding these songs and learning these songs, I've discovered it's a national movement. You can find it online in Singing Resistance, and much of it has come out of the Minnesota actions, and it's very exciting, very exciting. People are finding that singing is not only uplifts your spirits, but can be inspiring to others, can be calming in a difficult situation. So if 5 people come, I'll be happy. If more, there are many more who have expressed interest, so I'm excited for this afternoon.
Thank you for doing that work. I agree. I think it's really important. Music helps us manage. Music helps us motivate.
Hi, a couple of quick things. One, in 2 weeks, one of our own will be giving a sermon on, in honor of Trans Visibility Day, and that'll be on Sunday the 29th, I believe. Another is, this past week, I attended an Undoing Racism workshop held down at the Springfield UU, which was incredibly compelling, and if anybody would like to talk about systemic racism, white supremacy, etc., feel free. I'm Christine. I did an active bystander training on Friday, also something that we can do more of, if anybody wants to talk to me about that. And thanks, Suzanne. Just a reminder that if you're in a place where bad things start happening, one of the ways to diffuse what's going on is to break out in song. It is unexpected, kind, and really change the narrative. It is not a soft skill.
Tomorrow night from 5 to 7 downstairs, Stone Soup Cafe will be having its monthly community soup night. It's a pay-what-you-can basis. They'll have several soups and breads and desserts there. You can absolutely help yourself. And if you didn't know about it, now you do.
So next Sunday, we're pleased to bring the debut of Matt to the pulpit. You want to say a quick preview?
Just want to say I'm honored to be giving next Sunday's sermon, and I just want to offer some appreciation to Rob for your invitation warmly to have me speak. Thanks.
Nation. Nation. Okay. Unless there's any last-minute announcement, fortunately, I don't think the food has been getting cold, and I know the company will be warm. So let's all have a chance to